The many events in the world that are happening and have recently happened seem to be random and unconnected. All seems to be just a spaghetti of events. In this video I'm going to unravel that spaghetti and show the connection between seemingly unrelated events. And I will show you to what it will lead. All of this I will do in the light of biblical prophecies and using this chart that I made early summer this year, 2014. So let's start with the Middle East. What we see here is that ISIS has been active in several countries. They rape, torture and kill about everybody that does not comply with their view of Islam. Above all, they are targeting Jews and Christians, and their goal is to create an Islamic State in which there is no Israel. ISIS is not the only Islamic faction that is terrorizing the Middle East. In the Gaza Strip, Hamas started to fire thousands of rockets into Israel, with one only purpose: wiping Israel off the map. Hamas is indirectly backed by Fatah from the West Bank and the Palestinian Authority, with which they have agreed a unity government. Iran is basically fighting a proxy war by supplying weapons and missiles to Hamas. Iran has the same objective: annihilate Israel, as the Ayatollah recently stated again. Also, Turkey has shown its allegiance with Hamas and the Palestinians. At the same time, other factions are uprising and vowing their allegiance with ISIS. Among those are Hezbollah in Lebanon, Taliban in Afghanistan, and al-Nusra in Syria and Lebanon. The Gaza conflict has cooled down, but the Palestinians are rebelling in many places, most importantly Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. The mainstream news already speaks about a possible third intifada. The unrest in the Middle East has some side effects that appear to be very significant. I already mentioned the proxy involvement of Iran and Turkey, but there's also an alignment between Israel, Egypt, Jordan and Saudi Arabia. This move is necessary for the prophecies to be fulfilled. The uprising of ISIS has caused the USA with a host of allies to attack ISIS. This in turn will cause retaliations in the USA as well as in Europe. All of this is part of the downfall in power of the USA. In spite of the fact that much of this is staged and orchestrated, the end effect will be the same. Although Turkey is part of the alliance against ISIS, they have their own agenda and allow ISIS to defeat the Kurds for their own purpose. All of this will lead to a war, as is prophesied in Psalm 83. In this war, Israel will stand alone, as we see progressing by the day. The current period before this war is, as written in Zechariah 12. So eventually the different powers and factions will consolidate and turn against Israel. This war will set in motion a chain of events. It will lead to the destruction of Damascus, as foretold in Isaiah 17 and Amos 1. In one night the city will be turned into a ruinous heap and be no more. The war will lead to a forced peace treaty, as written in Daniel chapter 9 verse 27. And this will mark the start of the so-called 7-year tribulation period. Before this start, God will remove his children from the earth and the event that we call the rapture. If we take a look at the nations involved in the Psalm 83 war, according to the Bible, it becomes so clear that we are on the brink of it. The Bible names the regions and peoples with their ancient names, since the countries and borders were not yet as they are now. But if we translate this to the current nations, we see exactly those nations that are in turmoil right now, the nations that are turning against Israel. Note that also Jordan is starting to turn against Israel. Sometime after the aforementioned war and destruction of Damascus, the 7-year tribulation period will start. During this period, another war will take place, which is described in Ezekiel 38 and 39. The nations involved in this war are also mentioned in the Bible, and the key players here are Russia, Turkey, and Iran. They will come against Israel to take a spoil. That's why so much that is happening now already makes sense, as it is slowly setting the stage for this future war. This even includes the events in Ukraine. See the video The Leviathan Prophecy on this channel for more information about this and the relation to Israel. The ongoing events in Israel and with ISIS in the Middle East have caused Iran to become even more opposed to Israel and caused Turkey to also move in that direction, even though it's still a NATO member. Russia is clearly an ally of Syria and Iran, and thus against Israel. The stalling on the negotiations about a nuclear deal between the West and Iran is only for one reason. Iran wants to become a nuclear power with the purpose of war. The events in Ukraine put pressure on the gas deliveries from Russia to Europe and create an incentive for the future war. So we can see that the main players for this war are already taking their positions. But also the other parties are moving in that direction. The events in Africa are part of this, both in the northern African countries as well as the raids of Boko Haram in other African nations. The Bible describes what the world will be like during the 7-year tribulation period. Moral standards, laws and politics will be different from what the world has ever seen before. Good will be evil, and evil will be good. It is important to know that there will be a one world government with a world leader, the Antichrist, and a global financial system and a global new religion. This will not happen from one day to the other. We can see the changes already take place for a while. The events in Israel have sparked anti-Semitism all over the world, as did the visit of the Pope to the Middle East earlier this year. In the new system is no place for Jews or Christians. To control the global population, it is important not to have too many people. Population reduction is on the agenda of the United Nations and other globalist organizations for years. The Ebola outbreak and many other diseases play a role in this. The revelations of Edward Snowden, WikiLeaks and others have had as a result that most people now are aware that they are being spied on and tracked. And almost everyone accepts this. Another necessary tool for global control. Economic sanctions, conflicts and wars will cause a new massive financial crisis and pave the way for a new financial system. The interfaith movement and shift of the Vatican to a kind of New Age Chrislam is all in preparation of the new global religion. If you have read the news with regards to the execution of death penalties in the United States, you know that there is a strong push to start using guillotines. The Bible tells us this will be the #1 method of execution of anyone who does not comply with the new world order system during the tribulation period. The USA has already purchased and stored over 30,000 guillotines. The strong push for more liberty towards the LGBT agenda and same-sex marriages is not only a sign of demoralization of society, but also demonizing Bible-believing Christians who oppose this move. The masses are being prepared. The world is getting ready. On top of all the geopolitical events and changes, there are many other signs that clearly show us where we are on the timescale of history. Several prophets, and most importantly Jesus himself, describe a number of signs that would occur and increase before the rapture and the 7-year tribulation period. These include volcano eruptions, earthquakes, floods, extreme weather and signs in the skies, massive animal deaths and diseases. The statistics on these events show a dramatic exponential increase over the last few years. So the timeline according to Bible prophecies is as follows. Sometime in the near future the Psalm 83 war will take place. Israel will win this war, and it will lead to the destruction of Damascus and a rearrangement of the political landscape in the Middle East and beyond. It will also force a peace treaty as described in Daniel chapter 9. And this is when the 7-year tribulation period will start. So any time from now until that moment, the so-called rapture of the church can take place. Millions of people will vanish from the earth as God removes his children. During the tribulation period, there will be another major war called the Gog Magog War, as is described in Ezekiel 38 and 39. We can already see the stage slowly being set for this war. In the middle of the 7 years, the new ruler of the world, the Antichrist, will exalt himself as God in the new third temple in Jerusalem. This temple is yet to be built, and only recently Israel's Minister of Housing proposed to do so. The 7 years will end with the final war, the Battle of Armageddon, and the glorious second coming of Christ.